It's almost March, which means it's almost tournament time. Hello and welcome to the Bison Basketball Show. I'm Brian Shawn. Both the North Dakota State men's and women's basketball teams took to their home floor for the final time this past weekend, with both playing host to Omaha in a doubleheader at the Shield Center. For the men, another opportunity to knock off one of the league leaders. The Mavericks coming in looking for their sixth straight victory, but NDSU would come out firing early. Vinny Shaheed had 3 first-half triples as the Bison take a 4-point lead. A few moments later, Tyrah hesitates again, and then drops in another 3, all a part of a 13-1 run to push the Edge out to double digits. Dengu came off the bench to score 6 first-half points as well, 2 on the jump hook in the lane as both teams went through long scoring droughts. Omaha shot just 28% in the first half, but did enough to keep within striking distance. Off the miss, Matt Pyle putting it back up and in. He had 12 points and 13 rebounds. It's an 8-point game at halftime. Jared Samuelson came out early in the second half and hit a couple of tough threes for the Bison. Samuelson shooting over 50% from outside the arc in Summit League play. Gu also continued to work in the paint. He had 10 points and 5 rebounds in 20 minutes of action. But the Mavericks answer with a 13-4 run to take the lead with just under 6 minutes left. KJ Robinson had 3 second-half threes, scoring 11 of his 15 points in the final 11 minutes of the game. Shaheed answered back with his 4th triple on the next possession. He scored a team-high 13 points, but NDSU would score just 2 points in the final 5 minutes. And Mitch Hahn would hit his first and only basket of the game for 3 to secure the comeback victory for Omaha. 58-50 the final. The Bison held to their lowest scoring output of the season as the Mavericks shot over 50% in the second half to win their 6th straight.
It was a tough one. We were pretty stagnant out there, weren't cutting really hard, not playing with a lot of effort, and that's on us. 1 through 14 guys on the bench there and us playing, and so we just got to be better. We got to learn from this though. You can't just forget the past. You got to learn from it and grow from it. But come Monday, we got to forget about this, learn about it, and then move on because we got 2 really good teams coming.
Earlier in the day, the North Dakota State women hosted Omaha in their final home game of the season, and points hard to come by for both teams in the first half. The Mavericks go on a 9-0 run early in the opening quarter. Alina Pilakota the basket and the foul inside. The Bison held to just 16 points in the paint. Emily Dietz able to muscle in 2 off the inbounds play. She scored 7 of her 11 from the free throw line. Neither team would score for the first 4 minutes of the second quarter. NDSU getting its first basket from Michelle Geislerova. She was held to just 7 points on 2 of 9 shooting. Riley Nudell provided much-needed offense to trim the Omaha lead to just 1 at halftime as she drives in for the lay-in. The Mavericks leading despite shooting just 27% in the first half. In the second half, Omaha would build a double-digit lead. Kaylin Phillips, the tough bucket in the lane plus the foul, she scored a team-high 11 off the bench. After scoring just 4 points in the third quarter, NDSU would start to chip away in the final 10 minutes. Nudell knocking down the 3, she scored a team-high 16 points. Sofia Jovalovic scored 10 of her 13 points in the fourth quarter as well. The drive to the basket gets NDSU within 2 with just over 4 minutes left. Later, Nudell again left open for 3, and she hits again as North Dakota State explodes for 29 points in the final quarter, 17 of those coming from the free throw line as the Bison hit 21 of 27 overall from the stripe to rally back for the 55-48 win, snapping a 7-game losing streak and taking a big step towards securing a spot in the Summit League tournament.
We knew that we have to keep believing in our shots and just keep believing in ourselves because those are the shots that we practice every single day. Unfortunately, they were not falling in the first 3 quarters, but we kept believing in ourselves, in our teammates. We got some defensive stops and got the W. We needed it because we missed some opportunities in the past few games to win, and we got it tonight. This was especially for seniors, for 3 seniors that this is their last home game.
The first 3 quarters were pretty rough, and then once we saw the ball go through the hoop a couple times, we gained a lot more confidence, and that helped us finish out the game. We've struggled the last couple games, and then to get this win for not only the conference standings, but our seniors and the rest of the season, that was really good.
Before the game, Marina Fernandez, Tyrah Spencer, and Hannah Norman were all honored on Senior Day. Originally from Spain, Fernandez is playing in her second season with the program after transferring from Casper Community College. Norman joined the team earlier this month to provide some depth after finishing her soccer career at NDSU last fall, while Spencer, who is only a junior, is ending her career after this season due to a chronic knee condition that has worsened.
It means a lot to get a win on senior night. Even though I'm not a senior, it feels like I am. So it's a really big moment, really emotional for me. It's been tough, but I think that I've gotten through it, and my teammates have helped me a lot, and my coaches a lot, and my family and friends. So I would say if I had one word for it, it'd be perseverance, basically.
My experience has been great. I'm so proud of the team. I know that it's been tough. It's been a tough season, but at the end of the day, we got a dub at home. It's a great way to end my senior year. Well, we still have some more games, but at home it's just a great feeling, and we just stuck together. We were behind the whole time, but we kept fighting, we kept working together, and we got it. It's been a great experience. I'm so glad that I came overseas, and I've met wonderful people in Wyoming and here, and I would do it again if I could.
Both teams will finish on the road this weekend, starting with a doubleheader at South Dakota on Thursday. Stay with us on the Bison Basketball Show. We head out to the SHAC to visit with NDSU men's coach Dave Richman at the Nodak Insurance Company practice facility.
The Bison Basketball Show on Midco Sports Network is presented by Nodak Insurance Company and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back to the Bison Basketball Show, joined now by North Dakota State men's basketball coach David Richman. North Dakota State, hard-fought, grinded out kind of affair against Omaha, and I thought your guys came out of the chute pretty good. I thought the defensive intensity was really good, Dave, but it was one of those things in the last 10 minutes offensively, just couldn't get enough going.
Yeah, and even going back to that first half, Brian, it was just kind of a clunker. We didn't have great energy in our cuts and some of those things that we normally have. Even when we were getting stops, give Omaha credit. They were able to get back and get in front of us and make us fight, 5-on-5, so to speak. And so, again, I think what you're seeing is that, the Omahas, the South Dakota States and Fort Wayne, the ones that are ahead of us right now, your margin for error is less and less. And we've got to understand that and make sure we're doing all those little things, not just within the game, but in our preparation to get us over that hump.
Obviously, a difficult loss last Saturday, but just talking to the guys and your coaches, it seemed like everybody responded from that really well, and the resilience of your group was good too.
Yeah, I mean, you think so, but at the same time, you wonder if there was some lingering effects. That being said, all those lingering effects are excuses. I mean, that's life. We got beat in a basketball game, and there's a lot bigger things. We need to have our perspective and move forward, and I did. I did think Monday and Tuesday our energy was pretty great, all things considered, and it's important for us to learn from these failures, not be defined by them.
The ebbs and flows of college basketball, Dave, it's just amazing how it goes. You win 5, you lose a couple. That's just part of playing this game, but at the same time, you still have so much to play for here in the last week, and that's got to be at least gratifying.
Absolutely, and I think the only way I can sum it up is it's college basketball. You look around the country, and you just see random scores, and you just scratch your head. And so, but you're right. This is the end of February. This is the end of the regular season, and then there's everything in front of us. From a March perspective, from a conference tournament perspective, but we've got to take advantage of the moments, right? The here and nows to get ready for March coming up real fast.
The one thing, Dave, that I think your club has shown is that you can play with anybody in the league. So from that standpoint, your guys at least have to feel good that when the time comes for March, when it's time to really dial it up, when it all matters, you got a club that can compete with anybody.
Yeah, I've said this a couple times, Brian. There's a narrative going around outside our locker room that we've got a chance to do something unbelievable next year. And that cannot be our narrative within the locker room. This is a team that, to your point, has proven that we can compete with anybody at any place. And we need to make this moment our moment right now. And that's why it's important to get better in practice this week and get better against South Dakota, get better against Fort Wayne as we round into the conference tournament, because this is something that we want to do here and now.
And you've never made an excuse about it, Dave, about not having a senior on the roster. You have senior day and no seniors to honor except your student manager, director of basketball operations, Spencer, who's done a tremendous job here as an undergraduate. But it doesn't seem like a team right now that doesn't have seniors, because your guys are playing a lot older than maybe some would not think you are playing.
Well, I hope that's the case. I really do. I mean, because you can look at a lot of things and find the silver lining however you want. Yeah, we've been close and we don't have seniors. All those to us are excuses. That's where we need to attack this process and crush these moments. History is history, but the present, there's no time like the present. There's no time like the present, and that present will define the future.
Well, this club has shown it can win on the road as well. I saw that in the 3-game winning streak on the road. Now back on the road against South Dakota and Purdue-Fort Wayne. What are the biggest keys for your guys to put this behind you and go out there and try to be road warriors again? Just
to go back and fly around and have that winning spirit, that winning joy that we've had, that's been so infectious, and so many people that have talked about watching us play. And it's going to start Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in practice because, again, you go on the road. You play good teams. South Dakota's playing as well as anybody in the league right now. Obviously, Fort Wayne, senior day with John Conchar and Case and Harrell. So all those excuses will get ramped up pretty good when you play good teams, especially on the road.
All right, Dave, thanks as always for the time, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Dave Richman joining us here on the Bison Basketball Show. Stay with us. Maren Walseth will join us in studio after this timeout. Welcome back to the Bison Basketball Show, joined now by NDSU women's coach Maren Walseth. The Bison picking up a win on senior day over Omaha in a game that I don't think anybody would classify as a gorgeous game or a pretty game, Maren, but at the end of the day, your kids found a way to get it done.
Luckily, we don't get points for style because you're right. Those first 30 minutes were not an offensive clinic, let's say that. But I liked the perseverance and the resiliency that our group showed to still take the shots within rhythm, knowing the law of averages was going to come into effect at some point, and certainly 29 points in 10 minutes was impressive.
And the one thing about that too, Maren, is it's one thing when the ball's not going in the basket, but at least you still held Omaha to a low enough output that you guys at least had a chance to come back in that game, because if margin is any larger, that may not be easy to do.
You're right. You talk a lot about your offense can be inconsistent, but your defense has to be consistent. And I think we saw that throughout the 40 minutes that we were able to control Omaha for the most part, which allowed us to put ourselves in a situation to be successful.
And you continue to get a boost off the bench from Sofia Jovalovic. She scores 10 points in the fourth quarter, and everything just kind of starts to click. And you get to the line a lot in that fourth quarter, too. I think 17 of your 29 came from the free throw line. That was an important aspect, I think, just getting into attack mode, not settling for jumpers, right?
Right. We were much more aggressive, especially right in the first 2.5 minutes of the third quarter, or the fourth quarter. We're able to get to 3 fouls, 4 fouls, and then with 5 minutes left, we're shooting 2 foul shots with every whistle blown. So definitely getting the foul line, being more aggressive, worked for us.
And even just talking to all your players after the game, they all talked about the importance of in the final home game to find a way to get it done for the seniors like Marina and Tyrah that played in their last game, and Hannah Norman that joined the program earlier this month. That must have been, I'm sure, special for you and for them to at least be able to leave their home floor with a win.
Absolutely. Marina has meant a lot to us in her short time here, and so has Tyrah. It's sad to see Ty have to walk off a year short of completing her eligibility, but certainly understand from a medical perspective her long-term, health and whatnot. But we have got a very close group. Our kids really love each other, play for each other, and for them to rally for those two and also be able to bring Hannah into the fold later in the season was really special.
The one thing this win also did, Maren, was pretty much secure your spot in Sioux Falls. Not 100%, but about as close to 100% as you can get. And that's got to maybe take some pressure off the kids after going through some tough losses here in this final road trip, right?
I think there's a little bit of that involved. Certainly, mathematically, it's not a done deal, and so we still need to take care of business this weekend. But knowing that we're inching ever closer to one of our goals is, lets everyone breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief.
Well, you start off this road trip at South Dakota. Obviously had a wild game against South Dakota State on Sunday. That was a fun one. And then finishing up at Fort Wayne. So at least some opportunity here to see what your kids are made of on these last 2 games before it's tournament time.
Absolutely. Every game matters, and going down to Vermilion into a team who could potentially still be ranked in the national poll, that's a first for our program in that respect and in the conference, and that will be fantastic environment for us to play in. And then continue out to Fort Wayne, definitely a game that will be have serious implications. Knowing that we beat them here is not a guarantee of anything. I'm sure it's their senior night, and they'll have a lot on the line as well.
So funny how it works out, too. These teams you saw early in the conference season, then it feels like it's been forever since you've seen them. Good luck on the road this weekend. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, Maren Walseth joining us here on the Bison Basketball Show. Stay with us. We head back to the SHAC, to the Nodak Insurance Company practice facility, to sit down with our analyst, Greg Stemen, after this. Welcome back to the Bison Basketball Show, joined now by our Midco SN analyst, Greg Stemen, who's been along with us this entire season for all the Bison home games between the men and women. And Greg, we've seen teams go through ebbs and flows throughout the course of this season in the non-conference, and now it's certainly in the conference season. And for the Bison men, things were looking good, riding high. You win 5 in a row, now you lose at the buzzer, and then all of a sudden you have a double-digit lead in the second half, and Omaha comes back to get you, and your team struggles scoring a little bit. These are the things, as a team that is still trying to find itself without any seniors, that can be a challenge, but that's part of it with this group, right?
It is, and at the same time, what you have to do is say, why can't we play that way too? Why can't we play with that level of maturity? If we understand what isn't going well, how do we find a way to get that out of us? At the same time, let's keep in mind, it was South Dakota State that they lose on a last-second buzzer beater. It's Omaha, the other team that's tied with South Dakota State, two of the more veteran teams in the league that you can learn from because you're right there with those teams. And so there's no reason that you can't find things that you can improve on that give you a chance next time you run into them to say, you know what, we're not going to allow the same things that slipped away from us the first time happen to us the second time. So, maturity is valuable. South Dakota State and Omaha both have it. No reason NDSU can't utilize what maturity they have as well.
It's interesting with North Dakota State. Everything offensively was really clicking the last few weeks. And all of a sudden, Dave Richman just alluded to it. We kind of had a clunker. And he goes, even the first half was kind of a clunker. He goes, our guys weren't cutting hard. We weren't doing some of the things why we were successful offensively. But at the same time, you got to just try to learn from it. As Jared Samuelson said, we can't forget about it because we have to learn from it. But at the same time, it's one of those things where you can't let it impact you now going under the road.
Absolutely, and it takes some maturity to do that. It takes some maturity to say, all right, how do we not allow this to happen again? But at the same time, you can't let it bother you. You learn from it. It can't bother you, and then you grow against a team like Omaha, who has improved so much defensively. You alluded to it during the broadcast, Brian. It's a lot of their maturity. It's a lot of their toughness. And what you have to do is that's something different than what they saw against SDSU. SDSU can defend okay. Omaha's a little more aggressive, a little more versatile on the perimeter, the way they can switch things up and they can really spread you out. What are your pressure releases, and how do you use their pressure against them in the half court? And those are things that there's no question Dave Richman and his staff will find a way to make this team better because they had a chance to face that.
What do you like about North Dakota State at this point in the year? Certainly a different club than what we saw in November, the first handful of non-conference games. 2 road games left. It's tournament time. What makes North Dakota State dangerous here in the next couple of weeks?
Well, I think early in the season we talked about just they had a difficult time guarding when they went on the road. I think what they've demonstrated is that they now understand the importance, the urgency of half-court defense, and what's needed to make that succeed. Excuse me. The willingness to communicate and just the toughness at times to say, you know what, I'm going to keep the ball in front of me. And also they've defined roles. When you get Hunter and Griesel back, and they've got 9 guys that they're comfortable in going with, and I think people understand what they bring to the table, and I think the coaching staff understands who they can go to at critical times. I just think a little more consistency, a little more toughness.
On the flip side for the Bison women, getting a much-needed win against Omaha on their home floor, pretty much solidifying a spot in the Summit League tournament, snapping a 7-game losing streak, and the way they did it. Through the first 3 quarters, offensively was a huge struggle, but then to score 29 in the fourth quarter, get 17 free throws. How much of a boost is that for this club now going on the road to take on South Dakota and Purdue-Fort Wayne to wrap things up?
Well, it's huge for them because Fort Wayne is a team that, if they can get a win against, you never know where NDSU might end up in the seedings. And it was a struggle, and credit to them that they didn't just pack it in because it was hard to watch for 3 quarters. And at the same time, they scored 29 points in the fourth quarter. Riley Nudell, I thought, did some good things, but then Sofia Zavalovic really sparked them and got them going, and I think that was huge for them. You go on the road with confidence. You know you're going to be playing down in Sioux Falls. Maybe you relax and say, hey, let's go, accomplish some things that people don't expect us to.
At different points of the year, it's been different players. We saw Dietz have a hot streak. We saw Geislerova had a hot streak. She's had some big games. Lately, it's been Javalovic off the bench. But it seems like if all of the Pistons can start firing at the same time, North Dakota State can at least compete here in the next couple of weeks.
Well, they've shown they can do it at time for stretches. And you are right. North Dakota State has to play at an extremely high level if they want to play with the best teams in the league, and they have to do it for an entire 40 minutes. But you never know. You give yourselves a chance. That's all you can ask for. At the same time, different pieces have shown they're capable. Yeah, what happens on a night when everybody does play well together?
And you hope that your team is clicking at the right time.
Exactly. That's what matters.
Tournament time is coming up. It's been a lot of fun, partner. We'll see you down at Sioux Falls.
I've enjoyed it.
Stay with us here on the Bison Basketball Show. We're back to get you ready for the final week of regular season play.
The Bison Basketball Show on Midco Sports Network is presented by NODAC Insurance Company and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Back to wrap up this week's show as both teams embark on one final road trip before the Summit League tournament tips off in Sioux Falls. The men take on South Dakota at 8 p.m. on Thursday night before heading to Indiana for a meeting with Purdue-Fort Wayne on Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock Central Time. The Bison women play the same schedule at different times, taking on the Coyotes at 5:30 on Thursday before wrapping up the regular season against the Mastodons on Saturday at 1 o'clock. We'll see you back here next week as we get you set for tournament play on the Bison Basketball Show.